Welcome to the Discover Your Potential podcast hosted by me, Alexis Nolan. In this podcast, I talk with people who have achieved their potential and share insights and advice for how to achieve your own. I share stories from diverse experiences and backgrounds with the hope that you can take these learnings and apply it for yourself. In this episode of Discover Your Potential, I'm joined by Kathy Eastwood. She brings over 30 years of extensive leadership and boardroom experience, having held key executive roles such as Chief of Staff, Chief People Officer, and Chief Operations Officer across diverse functions such as finance, sales, and R&D. She's navigated all the challenges that come with these roles, and then one day she felt a spark that drove her towards a new calling. Merging her personal and professional journey, she founded E=Y, a leadership development firm that is pioneering new frontiers in leadership with their E3 leadership code, which is crafted to unlock measurable results and reshape how we connect with teams and stakeholders. The mission is clear: to prevent our children from ever having to endure the kind of dismal leadership many of us have experienced at some point in our careers. And when she's not steering the ship at E=Y, you might find her globetrotting vineyards. I'm with you there, Kathy, or indulging in culinary adventures, passions that reflect her belief in the richness of exploring and experiencing new cultures. So, Kathy, thank you for joining the podcast. I want to give you the opportunity to share your experience in your own words.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I was reflecting a little bit on this, and I realized that it's actually been a number of different sparks, right, of how I got here. And I think about it, it was when I was 8 years old. I was sitting in my dad's office in the World Trade Center and the corner office, and I had my little bow tie on, and he was the president of the company. And I said, you know what? This is what I'm going to do one day. I want to run my own company. And that's always been there. But then I was thinking, okay, so what were the things that were pivotal to get me, talking about where I want to get to and what it was, right? And I look at it and say, people gave me the opportunity to step back and ask me what I would love to do. And one of them was I was living in England. I was working for a company there, and the head of Europe came over and said, okay, Kath, where do you want to live next? Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
And I'm like, interesting. Went home, thought about it, and said, actually, I just really want to travel. I don't want to work.
Yeah.
I just want to travel. And I did. I left my job and I went traveling for a year.
Awesome.
Came back and then had another pivotal moment where someone, I left corporate. And I was like, all right, what do I want to do next? What would I love? And again, thought about what if I could do anything. And I wrote my dream job. I wanted to be number 2 for, a leader and help him drive change, or her drive change, but they had to care about people.
Yeah.
So wrote my dream job, got it.
Yeah.
And then the last one was when I left that dream job, now I had a pivotal moment to, do I do this at the next company?
Yeah.
Or do I do it for, multiple companies at once? And that's when I said, I really want to start my own company, and I want to impact as many people as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Pivotal moments. We talked about that when we first had our intro chat, because that was a question that I had. That was something that I felt I had a little over a month ago. I had a book idea. I love what I do as a chief of staff. There's so much experience that you get from these types of roles. You work with leaders, you understand how they tick, you understand what's made them successful. And I wanted to translate those same learnings into book format, and to build kind of a platform around that. And so you talk about those pivotal moments. I want to zoom into that, going and starting your own venture. That's a huge pivotal moment for anybody. It's terrifying in a lot of ways too.
Yeah.
What were the emotions? You talk about a spark and a calling. Kind of walk me through a little bit of that.
It was, I think, it was going to, what did life look like? I was in corporate for a long time. I loved being number 2. But I didn't want to be number 2 anymore.
Yeah.
It was time. And, listen, I loved, being in the chief of staff role, being in the chief people officer, and I loved every one of them. But I'm like, I really want to do this on my own. I want to see what it's like and if I can do it, right? At the end of the day, It's like, it's going to allow me to do what I want to do in life.
Yeah.
You know, being a business owner, you get to decide then, do I want to sponsor a golf tournament this
Sure.
week like I did? Is it that we're going to put a new campaign in place? Is it that we're going to develop a new product? To be able to be part of that decision making was something that was really interesting that I just decided that I had to do.
They are, you've, as a chief of staff, and I mean, all of your roles, executive roles, you deal with a lot of problems and challenges and different things. Starting your own venture is kind of similar to that, but you're really responsible for yourself. I mean, those challenges, those problems, not necessarily problems, but you know, those things that you're kind of having to come up with creative solutions. And you talk about like sponsoring a golf tournament. That's incredible. Like to go from, you know, kind of where you started to where you are now. That's really an impressive journey and just different problems to have. And you've definitely taken everything by the reins and you've just went for it. And I love that.
Thanks. It's not easy,
so,
you know, and it's,
no,
you know,
I'm learning that.
I think that I rethink it every once in a while. I'm like, is this really what I want to be doing?
Yeah.
You know, it's just something you have to continue to evaluate and knowing what it is that you want to do. I think that provides that opportunity to continue to reevaluate it. And because life changes. Right. Yeah. This isn't to say that somewhere down the line I go, this was lovely. But,
exactly.
You know, I want to do something different.
Yeah. And you talk about kind of this new life that you created for yourself. You've got you've got your professional experience. You have your personal interests. And like you said, you kind of take time to discover what that looks like. You need to constantly evaluate what it is that you want to do. And as you went from your corporate experience and trying to merge your personal interests into a cohesive life, can you share your philosophy on doing that and building a fulfilling life this way? I feel like so many of us like to compartmentalize our personal and professional lives. Like we keep them separate. But fulfillment and meaning, I think, really comes from blending those two things together. So what's your philosophy?
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore because when you think about it, we spend so much of our time working, right?
Yeah.
And you know, if you live that separately, it's really hard. And then where are the lines, right? So I had that opportunity when I left corporate. Think about it. You know, if I wasn't going to make any money, you know, if I was rich and could do nothing, what would I do? Because obviously you want to still do something and have purpose.
Sure.
And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, I'm really jealous of the musicians. I'm jealous of artists, right? Because they have this passion and, you know, it's really obvious what they're going to go do in their free time.
Athletes,
I'm really good at getting stuff done.
And
I'm like, well, what does that look like, you know, if I'm not getting paid? And I thought about it. I'm like, all right, what are the things I really love to do? And it was talking to my friends, talking to other colleagues. And it came down to is I love to inspire and enable people. And that's, if I'm getting paid or not, that's where I'm in my happiest place. And that's when I started to think about it is if you can find what your happy place is and then translate that into a way to make money as well, it's a win-win. And I've had some situations where I've met people. I think I think I told you this story before, but I was working in England, and this my roommate said to me, "You're working at Vodafone. Can you get me a job there?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, all right, let's talk about it. I'm a consultant, probably not, but you know." And I said, "Well, first, let me ask you something. What would you love to do?" Like again, the question: if you could do anything. He's like, "Oh, I'd be a race car driver." And I'm like, "Ooh, all right, you might be a little late for that one." I said, "Okay, but what are your skills?" And he's like, "I'm great at marketing. I'm a marketeer." And I said, "Well, have you considered applying to any of the major race car companies? You got Ferrari, you know, all of them. Macari's, like they're all in England." He goes, "Hadn't really thought about that." And 6 months later, I get an email from him now, because remember, I'm off traveling at this point. And he said, "You'll never believe I'm writing to you from the pit of a race car track. And I'm working for, I think it was Ferrari, wherever you go." And it warmed my heart because that's how you take your personal and your
Mm-hmm.
professional and you merge it
Yeah.
together,
Yeah.
right? Because sometimes we can't do what we would absolutely love, but if we know what we would want to do,
Yep.
that's my philosophy. And when I'm leading teams, that's what I ask, right? So, I'm often asking folks to put together their profile, right? What would they
Yeah.
love? And
Yeah.
one of the guys that reported to me said, I want to have a food truck. I'm like,
Come.
very different from
Yeah.
leading a professional services team.
Yeah.
But understanding that
Yeah.
as I was leading him through, the day-to-day stuff and asking him to do things that he had no necessarily desire to do, I
Yeah.
could put it in the context of the food truck.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do the spreadsheet, you're going to start to get your numbers for, you'll practice owning your own food
Yeah.
truck.
Yeah.
And that's my philosophy. If you combine what you love with what you have to do or what you're doing, then it doesn't feel like a
Yeah.
job.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have a personal story to that as well as finding my job here with Rivian. I had some time in between jobs and I picked up this book. Gosh, I gotta find the name of it. But essentially it was, the 2 hour job search is what it is. And it's kind of a similar exercise where it's an Excel spreadsheet. What are your 5 absolute dream companies? Regardless of your experience, what is something and like, I think about cars as an example, like the EV market. I thought about travel and cruise lines and all that stuff. And then you kind of take 5 different companies that are hiring, you kind of segment the list. And what you do is kind of what you alluded to, which is you find, based on your interests, based on your experience, those high priority places and jobs that will fit your skill sets, and you'll be surprised at what you can actually obtain. And I think, that example of, working at a race car company, doing the marketing, sitting in a pit crew. I mean, that's such a fulfilling, like, that sounds awesome. That's such a fulfilling experience. And I can imagine that reward that you felt by just giving a piece of advice and then receiving that email all that time later.
Oh, yeah.
The value that you find in that.
Yeah. And I think we don't always stop and think about what it
Yeah.
is and where we're the happiest. Doing
Mm-hmm.
a personality assessment, right?
Yeah.
Understanding, if you have extroverted tendencies and you look for a job that's going to be very routine in a back office where
Yeah.
you don't get to talk to anyone, you're going to be miserable,
Right.
right? So really understanding where you show up the best, I think it's so powerful, because it's a win-win for everyone in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is why thank you so much again for joining. This is why I'm really happy that you're here, because we have similar mindsets and insights in that way. I mean, I've got a way to go to get to your level, but I'm learning so much but I'm resonating so much because all of that kind of self-work, you have to take the time to do that. It doesn't have to be a dream job. It can be your job if you just take the time and allow yourself to really understand what it is that you want to achieve personally and align that with your professional goals. And I think about ambitions, right? You start a new venture. You've got a list of priorities. You've got a whole checklist of things you need to do. How do you balance accomplishing all of that while also having, a personal life that you've got at the same time, friendships, relationships, and so on?
Yeah. I think when you merge the two, like if you're able to start working with your own personal ambitions as well, right? When it's
Yeah.
merged, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But what I really focus on is how to look at the end vision, right? And expressing the end vision of where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
When I met my husband, the end vision was what was it going to be like when we were retired in a rocking chair on the back
Yeah.
porch? And we start there. And personally, he and I start there on a regular basis.
Mm.
Professionally, personally, when I'm
Yeah.
80, what am I going to be doing? Bring it back down. When I'm 70, when I'm 60. And then looking backwards and saying, okay, what do I have to do to be able to accomplish that? And then I break it down even further. So, okay, by the end of the year, what would I love to have accomplished, both professionally and personally?
Yeah.
And then every week I do it. So I continue to break it down from that long vision, right? And say, okay, what is it that I would love? And then what do I need to accomplish? So my to-do list is really after expressing that end vision. So saying, okay, these are the most important things I need to do.
Yeah.
These other things, yeah, sure, I would love to do them, but they're not going to get me to my end goal. That then helps prioritize. And then the other thing that I do on a regular basis, because you have to make decisions, right? Like, do I miss that party, right? Because I really should be working. You know, how much vacation can I take, or should I be working on this activity?
Yeah.
And then I try to put myself forward and say, am I going to look back and regret? Like, what will I regret? Because I don't believe in regrets. So I feel like if I do that regret analysis up front, then I can always say, I made a decision based on what I would love, and I'll never regret this. And I have, you know, gone to some parties that I'm like, but I knew I was never going to look back and go, probably should have worked.
Yeah. Lessons learned. You talk, the theme here I'm sensing is opportunity cost. And that's something that I've had to, as I start and kind of my own venture, my own journey, you really think about the opportunity costs of using your weekends to really grind and get your business up and going, or using your weekends to goof off. And I don't know, it's so funny hearing you say, you think about the end goal, you know, 80 years, then backtracking and backtracking. I had the exact same thought process. I'm like, what do I want my life to look like when I'm old? How can I work back from that and work back from that? And then what are the steps that I need to do this week? And so, yeah, it's just funny kind of thinking the same thing. I just had this idea yesterday about my book idea, and kind of breaking it into 3 parts. And the first is clarity, and having crystal clear vision as to what your life looks like and what you want to do will make breaking that down into smaller steps so much easier and a lot more attainable. You just got to start. I love that work. I really love that work. And you talk about through this process too, you've made some valuable connections. I mean, you obviously had a ton of experience working with executives. You've got an amazing partner. You know, you've, I'm sure, built incredible connections through E=Y. And how these connections played a critical role in your life, in your success, and particularly as you created E=Y. So pivoting from corporate to starting your new venture, how have those right connections helped you?
Oh, it's invaluable. You know, when I think about how they became invaluable connections first, right? I was very vulnerable and very honest on who I am, what I'm able to accomplish, what I can accomplish, and shared that with others. And what they do for me through this process is give me the confidence I need, you know, or the reminders I need, because being an entrepreneur and starting your own business, it can get lonely, it can get difficult. So someone that knows what your vision is and what you want to do, they help you along that way, and they bring you back to reality, right? Of like, well, wait a minute, this is what you told me, this is why you wanted to do this, has that changed? And I'm like, no, I still, yes, this is the vision. I want to help, you know, make the workplace a much better place and all of that. And they're like, okay, so do you think you can still do it? Oh yeah, you're right. And so it's helping keep you on path. You know, you talked about having that clarity of where you want to be. Having those people to support you on that journey is so important, because there's going to be ups and downs.
They're holding you accountable every day.
Absolutely.
That's what you need. I was hesitant to share. Like, I don't know what it is about me, but I've always been, again, it goes back to compartmentalizing professional and personal. I never wanted to like go on LinkedIn and just spam everybody with, here's some writing that I've done, check this out. But the more that I think about it, I actually had a friend give me some advice. She's like, if you share that and people just aren't into it, those aren't your people. Like you're building a support system that's going to fuel you and drive you even more. And that is so critical. And kind of to your point, just like holding you accountable. You said that you want to do this. Is this still what you want to do? If so, you know, really take a moment to think about it. What advice would you give? I have a really good,
go ahead. Someone else had said the same, and that your message will land with some and not with others. Those
Yeah.
that it does not land with are self-selecting out for you.
Yeah.
So it's powerful.
I had a hard time with that because I'm trying to, when you start out, you're trying to reach as many people as possible. You want to, you want to grow so fast. You want to grow really quickly, but that's just not how it works. Not everybody is going to want what you're offering. You have to have a niche, and it's going to take some experimenting and kind of finding out what that niche is. What advice would you have for someone looking to find or unlock kind of their potential in finding that niche? I think you were just about to say something too, so feel free to chime on too.
So it's think idealistically and not realistically. So I think we let our fear get in our way, and I call it feud, right? Your fear, your ego, uncertainty, and doubt gets in our way, I think, way too much. We have all of these mental barriers that hold us back. This is what we learn. This is what's right. These are the constraints. And when we can really let go of all of that and dream big, then we're thinking from the end vision of what would we absolutely love. And that's when you start to think about it and go, wow. Well, because we have a tendency, this is how I always think about it. When you ask someone to do a project plan, right, what's the first thing they do? Okay, I have to do A, B, and C. Those are the most logical things because we're conditioned to do it. But I always think about plans, and I'm sure you've run into this, where if you give someone, here's where we want to get to, the end goal, how would you get there? And you give them that freedom to think differently. They come up with an idea that you would have taken 10 steps to get there. This is the logical. And they can go, well, wait a minute. If we wanted to do $10 million rather than doing 200 deals at, I can't do the math really quick, we could just do one deal by going to this company. And you're like, oh, that makes complete sense.
A bunch of stuff.
I think we get so caught up in the work that has to be done in the steps. And so you have to know where you want to get to and what you would love to do. So I'll tell you another funny story. My husband and I doing one of these exercises. We do it on a regular basis. What would you love? And it was where we would love to live.
Yeah.
And we both said we want to live on the water. We want to have an outdoor space where we can enjoy our coffee or a tea in the morning. We can do our exercises. We have this perfect vision. We wake up one morning. Now we live in the concrete jungle of Manhattan, right? 6th floor, 8th floor. And then I looked around our apartment. We live on the East River.
Yeah.
I'm like, we live on the water.
On the water. Yeah.
Yeah, my husband's desk was facing the other way. Like the couch was nowhere near the windows. And I'm like, why are we not taking advantage of this? And so now we've reconfigured the whole room. I've got a couch where we sit and have our tea and coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
It's not 100%, but it is 80% to what we want. And so now we feel a lot better. We're like, okay, well, we're 80% there. That's good. Let's go worry about something else. And what else can we do? And we find the joy in just each little thing then. And that's how you find your potential, in my opinion. And there's so much more out there than what everyone else tells you should be doing. Because what everyone tells you they should, not always the best.
There's so much from that. I love that story. It's so funny being on the water. Just do a little feng shui. You never know if you get a water view. Who's not to say you won't exactly have on the water porch, at some point, without a doubt. But gosh, Kathy, that just rings so true of what are you... Your fear really comes from either two things. You're thinking about the past or you're thinking about the future. And so it's hard when you get caught up in that future vision that you want for yourself because you want it so bad and you can see it clearly. It's daunting for how to get from here to there. And so kind of evaluating your current circumstances, just having that general awareness of right now, what's within your control that you can do right now. I love that. The rearranging the furniture. I think I might steal that idea. I think I'm going to do a little feng shui around our place right now. That's a really cool story.
Yep. I'm looking at the water as we speak.
That's awesome. Another follow-up question for you, Kathy. When you start running your own venture, I'm sure you have to repeat kind of like a motivational mantra, or there's like a message that you have, right? What's yours? Do you have one?
Oh, I have a ton of them. I mean, I think the one that really lands, and it really is the company name, right? E
Yeah.
equals Y, leaders succeed.
Yeah.
And it's something that I started, this leadership code, I started personally because you heard it, we talked all about it, and you
Mm-hmm.
alluded to it when you're talking about the book, right? You need to express your end vision first, know where you're
Yeah.
going to go. Then you need to engage everyone
Yeah.
along with you on the journey, and you need to talk to people different ways to bring them, but you have
Mm-hmm.
to execute, right? And the real secret to all of this is having the emotional qualities, the empathy, the authenticity, the bringing the personal into business.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you're going to accomplish things that you don't think you can. And if
Yeah.
you just follow it over and over again, it just happens. So that's and by the way, my last name is Eastwood, so that's
It's really
E
easy
equals
to
Y.
remember. Yeah. That's awesome. Oh, Kathy, thank you so much. And I'm going to pivot and I want to ask a question that's not on our Q&A, but what is next for you? You think about, I know we talk about big visions and, being 80 or 70 and breaking it down from there, but what's your next move? What are you working on right now?
Well, similar to you, I'm working on the book.
Yeah. Yep.
Something that I've always wanted to do, and that is absolutely top of mind. Really about building a legacy, right? I think too often we look at building businesses to make a quick win, or, we
Mm-hmm.
would just want to make money.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking to build a legacy, create a company that would be the vision that other companies want to aspire to be, where people want to work, and create a glass door for leadership. So imagine that you could go online and find out if this leader has a followership and someone you want to work for or someone you want to hire. And that would be my dream, where we could eliminate a lot of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt of ending up in a place that just doesn't fit for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Kathy, I love what you're doing. I'm so excited for the book. The advice that you gave me was just because somebody said you need to build a platform around it doesn't mean you need to stop writing. And so I've definitely stuck with that. I actually started getting back to my notes and reviewing the book itself. So
Excellent.
I'm really happy about that. Thank you for the advice. But I had a podcast session that launched today. The podcast launched today, and in it we talked about connection and the value of connection. And Vadik, who I interviewed, he sent me a LinkedIn message, and I think about you sent me a LinkedIn message, and it's just so funny that the connections that are formed when you just you take a chance, and you just never know who you're going to meet, and it's really cool having you here, having the conversation, because this is the type of conversation I love so much. I love talking about the big picture and what's in our way and how to accomplish our goals. Like, I think our compasses are very, very similar in that regard. So I just want to thank you again for making the connection for us. And I know we'll continue to share some insights with each other, but I'm so excited for your book as well. Keep moving on that.
I can't wait to read yours. So we'll hold each other accountable to our dreams.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, we'll share some notes along the way too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining, Kathy. I really appreciate it. It is so great to share your story and share your experience. And for all of our viewers out there, please check out Kathy and E equals Y.
Great. Thanks so much. This was great.